Right now, we're seeing two massive forces collide. On one hand, you have a growing mental health crisis, especially among young people. And on the other, the absolute explosion of artificial intelligence. So, what happens when these two worlds meet? Well, it brings us to a huge question, one that feels both kind of sci-fi and also incredibly urgent. Can an AI, a chatbot, actually be an effective therapist for young people? And here's why it's so urgent. Get this, a staggering 75% of all mental health disorders first show up by the time someone is 25. This isn't a problem that waits for midlife. It starts young, which means finding effective early support is absolutely crucial. So, to tackle this crisis, a new kind of solution is popping up, and it's one that speaks a language this generation knows better than anyone: technology. We're talking about AI-driven chatbots, designed to be accessible, totally stigma-free, and right there on your phone when you need them. Okay, that sounds pretty amazing on paper, right? But, and this is a big but, with something this important, we have to ask the hard question: is there any solid scientific proof that these things actually work for young people? That's exactly what we're going to figure out. To get to the truth, we're not just looking at one opinion or one study. We're diving into a major news scientific review. It's something called a meta-analysis, and honestly, it's our best shot at getting a really clear picture of what's going on. So what the heck is a meta-analysis? Think of it like a detective. A good detective doesn't just trust one witness, right? They go out and talk to all the reliable witnesses, they piece together all the stories, and from that, they find the truth. That's exactly what this review does, but for AI chatbot studies. And just look at the scale of this detective work. They started with almost 15,000 studies. Then they went through this incredibly rigorous process to filter them all down to just the 15 best, most relevant trials. That's how you know the final result is going to be solid. All right, so let's get to the good stuff. What did all that work actually uncover? First up, let's look at one of the biggest challenges out there: depression. So the researchers crunched all the numbers from the different trials, and when it came to depressive symptoms, what they found wasn't murky or confusing at all. The signal came through loud and clear. Now, this chart might look a little intense, but it's actually super simple to read. See that vertical line right down the middle? That's the no effect line. Anything to the right of it means the chatbot helped. And, well, just look at where basically all the studies landed. And here is the bottom line, straight from the paper itself. The AI chatbots had a moderate to large positive effect on symptoms of depression. Now, in the world of scientific research, that's not a small thing. That's a really significant finding. But here's where it gets even more interesting. They found the effect was strongest for young people with what are called subclinical symptoms. So what does that mean? It means kids who are starting to show the signs of depression but aren't in a full-blown diagnosed crisis yet. This is huge because it points to these chatbots being a powerful tool for early intervention.
Okay, so that's a pretty clear win for depression. But mental health isn't just one thing, right? What about other common issues like anxiety or stress? Did the chatbots help there too?
Well, this is where the story takes a really interesting turn. Just look at this table. For depression, you see that big green check mark, a significant effect. But for anxiety, for stress, for just general well-being, nope, the data just didn't show a significant impact. So what's going on? Why the huge difference? The researchers have a pretty compelling theory. See, most of these chatbots are based on something called cognitive behavioral therapy, or CBT. And CBT is fantastic for challenging negative thought patterns. But for things like anxiety, you often need behavioral stuff, like exposure therapy, which is something a chatbot, can't really do. So after digging through all of this, what's the bottom line? What's the one thing we should really take away from this whole investigation? First things first, and this is important, the researchers are very clear that the evidence isn't perfect. See all that yellow and red on this chart? That basically means that some of the studies they looked at had a few weaknesses or a risk of bias. It doesn't erase the findings, but it does tell us we need more top-notch research. So let's just boil it all down. Number 1, AI chatbots show real promise for helping young people who are dealing with depression. 2, they seem to be especially good for early intervention, for catching things before they get severe. 3, the proof just isn't there yet for anxiety or stress. And finally, all this means we should see them as a promising new tool in the toolbox, but definitely not a magic cure-all. And really, that's the headline right there, straight from the study's own conclusion. It's all about the potential for early intervention in depression, and maybe, just maybe, stopping bigger problems from ever developing down the road.
Which leaves us with this final massive question. As this AI tech keeps getting better and better, what's its real place going to be? Is it here to replace human therapists? Or is it going to be a powerful, new, and accessible tool in the toolbox? Based on the science we have today, the answer seems to be pointing pretty clearly toward that toolbox.